So if you're watching this video, it means that you signed up for the Flipped Classroom workshop on Friday, November the 13th. And if you've done that, I actually made the decision to actually flip the workshop. So thank you so much for tuning in to watch this video and to prepare yourself for Friday's workshop, where you're going to be very hands-on and very productive during the workshop. So it's going to take about 10 minutes of your time to go through kind of what is a flipped classroom, what is this concept, and maybe why should I adopt it. So I am an amateur flipper. I just started flipping my classroom in September, and with good success and good results. So I thought I'd share that with you today. So what is a flipped classroom? If you don't already know, it's a model where we basically take the traditional classroom and we flip it. So for instance, in my accounting classroom, I would spend the majority of a class period teaching a lesson, and then the students would start their homework or start their practice questions and have to finish it at home. And what I was finding is that most students were not actually finishing the homework at home, either because they were confused or ran out of time or forgot to bring their textbooks home. And so what I've done is I've created short video lessons of my accounting topics. The students watch that for homework, and then they come to class prepared to practice what they've learned and have class discussions. So here's what a flipped classroom looks like in a pictorial. So students are at home and they're watching a video lesson and they have some notes. So I print off my notes for them, and they watch the video lesson, and they take between 10 and 15 minutes. And then they come to class and we recap the key concepts and provide feedback, and the student starts working on practicing what they've learned. Sorry. And then some students, they will extend their learning past what we're completing in the classroom. So now I'm going to turn me off so that you can't see me anymore. I'm sorry. I'll start coughing now. So what are the advantages of the flipped classroom? And hopefully a lot of this is obvious, but it does promote peer interaction because students have more time in the classroom to work on, to work together and to share ideas and to help each other, more so than I've ever done before. When I've taught a traditional lesson, it's really me standing up, teaching the topics, and students just really passively listening and writing down the note. It encourages higher student engagement. So I almost think of this as the students actually have to work a lot harder in a flipped classroom, because when they're in the classroom, they're active. They are working on questions, they are asking questions, they are testing their understanding, they are participating in class discussion. And so when they come to my classroom, they know they're not going to be sitting there taking a note. They're going to actually be doing work. It makes learning central. And so I've noticed this in my classroom as well, that I can work with individual students and really assess their learning and how well they're understanding concepts much more clearly. Never before have I felt that I had such a handle on who understands which topics. Before, I would really have, until the students did a test, I wouldn't realize that James didn't understand HST concepts. Now I know the day after he's watched the video lesson and he practices those questions in class, I know then that he hasn't done that or understood that topic. The other thing it does is it fosters independent learning. So it really puts the onus on the students to really take ownership over their learning and how much they want to learn on a topic. And then it provides increased individualization. And I would say that for me, this is the clear, huge benefits that I see both for myself and for students, where I get to work one-on-one or in a small group of students who are struggling, and everybody else is carrying on because they don't really need me as much. And I'm sure that you found that in your classrooms as well, that a few need more of your attention than others. So at this point, what I would like you to do is I would like you to jot down a few benefits that you think the flipped classroom would give you, because this slide here does not list all of the advantages or benefits to a flipped classroom. So I want you to really think about what would be the benefits to you and to your students by flipping your classroom. And then also I would like you to consider the barriers. Because of course, in any situation, there are going to be barriers to, to being successful with this concept. So what are those barriers? And I want you to really think about what's going to prevent you from being successful and what's going to prevent students from being successful, and what are the barriers to this implementation. So jot those down as well, and we will discuss them at the workshop. So flipping my accounting classroom. So how did I do it? Well, first thing I do is I develop a presentation lesson for each topic. Now, I already had my lessons prepared because I've been teaching this topic for a long time. But now I really have to think about the structure of my lesson, and I need to make sure that I'm complete and I've covered everything that they need to know. So I need to make sure my lessons are quite robust. I need to create a 10 to 15 minute video lesson. Any longer than 15 minutes, the students are going to tune out. I would actually even say you really want to stay closer to that 10 minutes. You need to prepare a student version of the PowerPoint, or you need to create some sort of handout or something that the student's going to be actively doing. So you don't want them just passively watching a video lesson, you want them engaged. So writing down questions or answering a couple of little questions or writing down questions they might want to ask in class the next day. And you want to make sure that you're asking those critical thinking questions in the lesson. Students watch a video lesson only 2 to 3 times a week in my class. So I find I only teach 2 or 3 lessons a week. And so they only have now 2 to 3 times a week where they have homework. And that homework consists of a 10-minute lesson. So really, they have very, very little homework to do, aside from studying for quizzes and tests, which I would expect them to be doing anyway, especially if they want to do well in the course. You need to recap the key concepts and processes at the beginning of class and even go through a couple of examples with them so that they can get started on their practice questions. This for me takes about 10 to 15 minutes to cover at the beginning of class. I often use a tool called Kahoot, which is a quick survey tool where I can ask multiple choice questions or true and false questions. Students are all participating using their phone or their cell phone, answering questions, and we can show you that tomorrow if anybody wants to see it. I know some of you are already probably using Kahoot. We also discussed those critical thinking questions. So I find that now that I flip my classroom, I get to these more easily. So before, I would just teach a lesson and the students were so busy trying to absorb what I was talking about and writing down the lesson that they weren't really having time to process or think about what the topic is that we were covering. I now find, because the students are watching the video the night before, we can have a much richer conversation about those topics in the classroom. And finally, students have the rest of the period, usually about 50 minutes, to work on practice questions or complete an assignment in class. And so they have lots of time to get busy and down to work. So here's the data. So I did a survey with my students last week using SurveyMonkey and asked them a couple of questions. Actually, I asked them a whole bunch of questions, but one of the questions I asked was, do you prefer the flipped classroom? And it was really clear to me that I had a group, 10 students who neither agreed or disagreed. So they were indifferent in the style that the classroom was. But here now I've got I've got 13 students who either agree or strongly agree that they prefer the flipped classroom approach in the classroom. So that was really interesting to me. I was really surprised by those results. And the other thing is that I asked them, does the teacher have more time to work with each student? And I asked them, do you agree with that? And they, again, 20 students either agree or strongly agree that that is the case. And I surveyed 25 students responded to my survey. So I thought that was a significant number who agree or strongly agree. So here I'm giving more one-on-one time. Students are getting more of me helping them through their questions. And so then I also asked them for a little bit of anecdotal feedback. And so here are some comments that students said. A couple of them said things like, it's very helpful when studying for tests because they can go back to it. They can get a better understanding, or I'll go over here. So I would recommend it because it allows students to complete assignments in class where they can ask the teacher for help rather than attempting to complete these assignments at home where they may get stuck or not have the teacher to help right away. And when students get frustrated, they disengage. I recommend that other teachers do adopt this concept in their classroom because it allows students to stay on top of their work. And I know this is from a student who is away a lot for extracurricular activities. Even if you're sick at home, you can simply watch the video and be prepared for class when you return. And so a huge benefit for me. It's very helpful when studying for tests, so students can go back and rewatch them. I get a better understanding with this rather than sitting through a lesson. Missing something you can go back to and even pause it. And so again, in a regular classroom, a student can't pause it and then come back later. So that's great. And I do recommend this type of classroom a lot. In my case, I'm much more motivated to do work at school than the textbook work at home. So that was interesting. And I don't say that that's the case of all students, and that wasn't the feedback I got from everybody, but I thought that was really interesting. So what do you need to flip? Well, the first thing is you need some sort of video making software. And there is some free software out there. Screencast-O-Matic does have a free software. I paid for the $30 Pro license, and it's a 5-year license, so it was almost nothing. And it's super easy to use. This is how I'm creating this lesson right now. I do have a writing tablet, a Bamboo. It's super cheap. I think they're about, I don't know, $75. And if you speak really nicely to Todd Snesnick, you can probably get one for free, or to someone in the board. You need some sort of computer with a webcam. It's really important to engage with the students. They can see you, so that they can see you. You also need to create your videos yourself. You can't go onto YouTube and find videos. Studies have shown that when teachers do that in a flipped classroom, students quickly disengage and stop watching the videos. You need to have access to a YouTube account so you can upload your videos. I tried to use Google Docs and upload my videos in Google Docs, but students then had to log into Google Docs, and some people were having trouble logging into Google Docs. They couldn't remember their password, and so I want to keep it simple. I want to make sure that there's no barrier in that way in terms of accessing the video. So I use YouTube. You need time to create well-prepared lessons, and so I've invested a lot of time this semester in creating these lessons, but I know that once I have them, it's going to only get easier. I need a place to post those links to the video. So I use my classroom website to post my video lesson links, and you can use D2L as well. Although with D2L, they have to log into it, so as long as they're comfortable logging into it, that might be a great way to do it. And of course, you need a little bit of courage, a leap of faith to try this out and dive in. Tips for successful flips. So I've mentioned this a couple times, but you don't want your videos to be any longer than about 10 minutes. And keep them simple. They don't need to be complicated or fancy. I think actually that takes away from the lesson a little bit. You want them to be simple. I'm not looking to entertain them. I'm not going to try to, what's the word? I'm not going to try to keep them entertained. And start small, 1 lesson or 1 week or 1 unit. Your videos don't have to be perfect or fancy. Add your own personality. Students will appreciate this. If they're not perfect, that's okay, and stay positive. Some students will resist the change. So I'm going to leave you with this. I would like you to think about these questions and answer these questions so we can have a good conversation on Friday. So where could you see this concept working within your course or classroom? What lesson, what topic could you maybe flip? What are the challenges that you personally face with incorporating this approach? And finally, what lesson can you bring with you for the workshop to allow you to best test out this method? So bring something with you, a topic that maybe you're covering next week or in the next 2 weeks, and you want to try to flip it. So I will see you on Friday. Thank you so much for watching.